So one of the biggest questions for victims of abuse is, why me? Why did this person hurt me? What did I do? What did I do to deserve this? And the most important answer to that question is nothing. The abuser abused you because they made the decision to take those actions that were harmful. Even if you're a person who, let's say, is biologically compromised, maybe you have like a hormone imbalance or something like that, and you are not a safe person. You recognize, oh, I'm not a safe person. I don't want to harm other people. And so then you take actions to remove yourself. So even if it's not like an abuser's choice, they're still making choices. Once you realize you're a loaded gun, you put the gun away, lock it away in a cabinet, right? We put it away so that it cannot harm people. And so if you're a victim of abuse and that person, for whatever reason, is taking those harmful actions towards you, that is because of who they are, not because of who you are. But however, we do get to a point where we go, okay, I really want to move forward in my life in a way that is safe and doesn't unintentionally leave any areas, ways, avenues, doors for these abusers to get to me or hurt me. How do I help prevent that? And so that's when you'll see like the information about like boundaries. It's good to like have good boundaries, enforce your boundaries, pay attention to people who violate your boundaries. Unfortunately, we have a big problem in the victim community where a victim who is in an abuse dynamic or is just out of an abuse dynamic is getting this later stage information too early. They're being told, why you? Oh, because you have bad boundaries. No. However, later, when the victim needs to feel empowered, find a way to empower themselves to take decisions on their own behalf so that they are safe, then that boundary discussion is really important. But actually, that's not what I wanted to do the video on. I wanted to do the video on how abusers hijack your mind and then use it against you so that you end up making poor decisions that then compound. We all know about financial, like compounding interest in financial areas. Every little bit more creates more interest, which compounds. And so the more you have, the more it compounds. It's like a snowball effect in finances. Well, the same thing happens with our decisions. And so it's very easy to take one decision that leads to the next decision, that leads to the next decision. And then suddenly you're down a road you never really intended to go down. And so what I see with a lot of victims of abuse is unintentionally, they are making poor decision after poor decision that compounds in these drastic ways and leads them down this path that they never would have chosen. And why that happens is because often, if you were a child victim of abuse, you had your parents telling you things about yourself. They define you to yourself. They've put labels on you. And then the child internalizes those labels, that defining, and starts to make decisions from that position. And the thing is, this isn't intrinsically a bad thing. Like I do that with my son. A good parent will do that with their child in a positive direction. Wow, you really you work hard. You worked hard on that. You're a hard worker. Oh wow, you're making great grades. I love what a great student you are. I see, that you're being athletic and I love what a great athlete you are, and so the kids, they internalize these like labels, like I'm a great athlete, I'm a good student, I'm a this, I'm a that, right? And then they make decisions in line with that identity. As parents, we have a lot of authority and ability to shape our child's identity. And that is not intrinsically a bad thing. However, when you have emotionally immature people, or you have abusers, or you have just shitty parents who are using what is supposed to be a mechanism for the child's benefit against the child. So it's, you're lazy. Why are you so stupid? You're such a pig, etc. Just these horrible things. And then they wend their way into our souls, and you hear it enough times and you start to believe it. And it's a form of brainwashing for the child. They've been defined in a very negative way, and they hear the parent's internal voice in their mind. And they don't necessarily realize like that's the parent's voice that has been programmed, and it's not their own voice. And so that's the other thing that I want to mention too. Not every voice that we hear not every thought in our mind is our thought. We do not need to take ownership of the thoughts. So I love how this works on any paradigm that you want. If you are an atheist or you're like just being more psychology driven, you'll see the language of like depression lies, anxiety lies, fear lies. Don't listen to those thoughts. Or they'll talk about intrusive thoughts, like this thought came out of nowhere. There's like a really great French phrase for it. I forget it, but this is like a well-established phenomenon around the world. If you are spiritual, so let's say you're spiritual, and you could think of it as like maybe it's entities. Some people like to think of a what's it called, a guiding spirit, like a guide, spirit guide, guys. If you are, or like maybe negative entities. If you are Christian, it's going to be that classic like good angel, bad angel on your shoulder, kind of like influencing you one way or the other. But the thing is, the thought framework and the thoughts and the voice that we internalize when we're in an abuse dynamic, when our defenses are lowered, we aren't as mentally strong and able to repel like the incorrect things. And then just over time, it wears on you. And then you move forward in your life with these thoughts that you may follow. And each time you follow it in that negative direction, it compounds and you make decisions. Let's say you give somebody a chance that, like, if we're discerning, we would not have given them a chance. Or the way an abuser will manipulate a victim, and it sort of weaponizes their own like moral framework against them, and they often do it in a way that's an emotionally charged period of time. And so you're not even able to engage your cognitive thinking. Like, they're trying to bypass your ability to think and use your mind. And so the decisions compound, just like in the financial sphere, interest compounds. The more money you have, the more interest you make, the more interest you make, the more money you have, the more money you have, the more interest you make. The same thing for the decisions. The more good decisions you make, the more good outcomes you get, the more you have the ability to make more good decisions, the more of a good outcome you get. And the same way for the negative. So when you're sitting here and you're like, why is my life like this? How did this happen? Sometimes it's because that underlying programming that was thrust upon a victim is leading them to make decisions that then compound in the wrong direction. I noticed that the friends that I made when I was in abusive relationships were not friends. Whereas the friends that I made when I was living my best life, great friends, I still have them, long-term, decades-long friendships. And I think part of it is because of this decision compounding. Anyway, I hope this makes sense, and I'll talk to you next time.